Insects were never meant to grow this large, yet one stretched wider than a hawk, another longer than a man. The reason was not evolution. It was the air itself, and when the air changed, the giants vanished. Rewind 300 million years. What is now Britain sits on the equator. Warm, drowned and green. Endless swamps stretch to the horizon, half land, half water. Trees rise 40 meters into the haze. Not oak, not pine. Scale trees, their bark patterned like the skin of a reptile. Giant horsetails crowd the water's edge, tall as houses. There are no flowers here. None have evolved. There is no bird song. Nothing with a backbone can fly. The air is thick, wet, heavy enough to feel in your chest. If you stood here, the heat would press in first, then the sound, a low drone of wings you cannot see. Nothing about this place would feel like home. And through that heavy air, something moves. 4 wings, each as long as your forearm. Enormous eyes that miss nothing. The body of a hunter. This is Meganeura, a griffinfly, a distant relative of the dragonfly. Though no dragonfly today comes close, it banks between the trunks and smaller insects scatter. It rules this sky because nothing else can reach it. Watch it hunt. It hangs still in the air, then folds forward in a blink. Its spined legs snap shut like a cage. A smaller insect is taken mid-flight, and the sky falls quiet again. But it is not alone up here. Other winged giants drift through the canopy. Strange insects with beak-like mouths, piercing plants for sap. The air itself is crowded with things that should not be able to fly. Now look down. On the forest floor, the ground seems to move. A long body, armored and segmented, drags through the rotting leaves. It is longer than a person is tall, nearly 2.5 meters. Its name is Arthropleura, the largest creature ever to walk on many legs, a millipede grown into a monster. Nothing hunts it, nothing can. It grazes the rotting floor, stripping fallen wood and spores. And once in its life, it must do the most dangerous thing of all: shed its armor and lie soft in the open, waiting to harden. As the light fades, the swamp does not fall silent. It only changes hunters. From a burrow at the water's edge, something climbs into the dark. A scorpion, as long as your arm, Pulmonoscorpius, the lung breather. It hunts by touch and tremor, claws spread, tail arched over its back. A small amphibian shifts in the mud. Too late. The claws close, the sting falls once. In this forest, even the darkness has giants. For a few million years, this was the shape of the world. Giants on the ground, giants in the air. And the question that matters is not what they were. It is how anything could grow this large. The answer begins with a single number. Today, the air you breathe is 1/5 oxygen, 21%. In this ancient world, it was far higher, above 30%, perhaps 35%. And for an insect, that changes everything. Insects do not have lungs. Air enters through rows of tiny holes along their bodies, then seeps inward through branching tubes. It moves by diffusion, slow, passive, and only so far. That single limit is why insects today stay small, grow too large, and the air can no longer reach the center of the body. But richer air pushes deeper. It feeds tissue that thinner air could never reach. More oxygen means a larger frame can breathe. For a flying hunter like Meganeura, whose wing muscles burn oxygen with every beat, that gift was everything. The sky built her. But why was the air so rich? The answer is the forest itself. These early trees had learned to build wood, and almost nothing had yet learned to rot it. So when they fell, they did not decay. They piled up. They sank into the swamp and were buried whole. Every buried trunk locked its carbon away and left its oxygen behind, layer upon layer. For millions of years, those drowned forests became the coal we still burn today. It is why we call this age the Carboniferous. The giants were breathing the gift of a buried world. And yet, the air is not the whole story. Look again at the creature on the ground. Arthropleura reached its monstrous size before the oxygen ever peaked. It did not breathe its way to giant, it ate its way there. The forest floor was an endless feast. Dead wood, spores and rot, and not a single predator could touch it. So there were two roads to gigantism. One breathed its size down from the sky. The other devoured it up from the earth. Even now, scientists argue over exactly how these giants were built. But on one thing they agree. This was the one moment in Earth's history when it was possible at all. Nothing this large lasts. Slowly, the world that made the giants began to close. It began with the forests. Around 305 million years ago, the climate swung toward drought. The vast, connected swamps broke apart, shrinking into scattered islands of green. Scientists call it the Carboniferous rainforest collapse. The endless forest that fed the oxygen was breaking down. With fewer trees buried, the air slowly began to lose its edge, and the oxygen began to fall. For a creature that breathed its size from the air, thinner air was a slow suffocation. Remember that soft, helpless hour after each molt. As the giants weakened, that hour became a death sentence, and so the giants shrank, generation by generation. Then, 252 million years ago, the world almost ended. The largest extinction in Earth's history, the Great Dying. The griffinflies were gone, Arthropleura was gone, the age of giants was over, and deep time moved on. Millions of years passed, the forests changed, eventually the oxygen climbed again, but the giants never came back. Why? Because the sky was no longer empty. Around 150 million years ago, a new kind of hunter rose into the air, birds, and a giant insect is a slow one, an easy meal. In a sky full of wings and talons, being large is no longer a gift, it is a target. So the ceiling on insect size was never lifted again. It was held down, not by the air, but by teeth. That is why even today, in air you could breathe, no insect grows wider than a hawk. The giants belonged to one narrow window, a world of thick air and empty skies, a world that rose and ruled and vanished millions of years before you.